Hi, my name is Karen, and I have a big confession to make. I might have given pills to my dad to make him look more like a woman. Well, in fact, I definitely did. I know it's messed up, but desperate times call for drastic measures. I don't regret my decision, but I have stopped doing it. After all, my plan worked to perfection, and there was no need for him to take the pills any longer. Let me tell you all about how my dad became very feminine for a long time. I was amazed the pills worked so well because he really did look like a masculine woman. Well, let me start by saying that my mom is awesome, and my dad made the biggest mistake of his life by divorcing her. She is an amazing, intelligent, and sweet woman, but dad wanted to be with younger women. Imagine how annoyed I was at that. Dad gave up his family just to behave like a guy half his age. I wish Dad could be more mature. Now, I have to admit, my father isn't a bad guy. He just makes terrible decisions and tends to decide things on whims. This makes him very impulsive, and he ends up messing up more often than not. He clearly loves me and has raised me well, but as a guy, he's kind of messed up. He wasn't nice at all during the divorce procedures, and so I sort of believed he had some punishment coming. Still, I decided not to jump into action just yet. Maybe Dad would come to his senses, and then he'd go back to Mom. Instead, he got himself the craziest girlfriend in the world. She was mean, annoying, and entitled, but she was hot. That was all my dad saw in her, and she had him wrapped around her little finger. It was so sad. Dad drooled whenever she was around. He was a middle-aged guy letting a girl barely 10 years older than I make every decision for him. I mean, if that was just affecting my dad, then maybe I wouldn't have gotten involved, but it affected me as well. You see, Mom worked long hours. She couldn't take care of me as often as she'd like to. So when Mom and Dad divorced, it was decided that I should go live with my dad instead. I was not happy. I argued that I'd rather be with my mother. But they talked to me and let me know it was best for me to stay with Dad. Mom promised me we'd still spend a lot of time together and I'd go to her place often, but I'd be living most of the week at my father's house. I got incredibly upset. Mom explained that she worked such long hours and she didn't like the idea of having me be all on my own all that time. So it was better if, for the time being, I lived with Dad full time. Look, this sounds mean. I know Dad loves me, and I love him. I like spending time with him, but I didn't want to be around him all the time. He was very impulsive, as I said, and his girlfriend was such a mess. I hated Missy, and I know she hated me as well, or at least she really, really didn't like me. Having a teenager at her place was so annoying to her because she didn't get to do whatever she wanted. Missy was so entitled, and oh yes, she began living with my dad like 2 months after the divorce was final. Talk about convenience. You see, Dad is quite wealthy, and Missy had a way of getting him to buy her everything she wanted. It was super annoying, and I would tell my dad that he shouldn't be spending this money on her. Of course, he took her side and said he liked pampering her. I rolled my eyes and shrugged, but I still wasn't happy about her. Missy and I would get into these big arguments, yelling matches almost, like we were sisters or something. She was older than me, but she behaved like a stubborn princess and got annoyed about everything I did. She began acting like a totally evil stepmom, bossing me around as if she had any right to tell me what to do. She liked the power, I think, but of course, I wasn't having it. Every time she told me what to do, I just closed the door to my room and ignored her, or began arguing with her and reminding Missy that this was my dad's house, not hers. Dad was, understandably, not happy about his daughter and his girlfriend fighting all the time, but he refused to take sides. He didn't want either of us to get mad at him, which was super annoying, as you can imagine. Missy was very reckless and juvenile, and she didn't even have a job. She didn't care about me at all and only paid attention to me when she wanted to scold me. I eventually had enough and decided to talk to my dad again about Missy. I told him that I just didn't get along with his girlfriend, and having to live under the same roof as she was a complete hell. I explained that she made me feel uncomfortable in my own home and wanted nothing to do with her. If he wanted to keep dating her, she could find a place of her own, or I could move back with my mom. Dad asked me to be a bit more patient and try to get along with her. He explained that she was a nice girl and I should try to give her a chance. He told me that he would speak with her and try to get Missy to be nicer to me. Dad promised that with a bit more time it would get better and we would get along far better. I begrudgingly agreed and tried so hard to give Missy a chance, but it only got worse and worse. Plus, Dad was nasty to my mom whenever they had to talk to each other, so I finally had enough. It was time to get Missy to break up with my dad and teach him a lesson in the process. It took me some time to come up with a good plan, but eventually it came to me. Missy was incredibly shallow, and she would never date a guy who she would be embarrassed to be seen with, no matter how much money he had. So I needed to make my dad look like someone she'd be ashamed to date. Now, how could I get that done? I couldn't make him gain weight without him realizing something was wrong and simply changing his diet. So it needed to be something I could slip into his food without him noticing. Suddenly, an idea came to me. What if I gave my dad female hormones and got him to look more like a woman? Then he wouldn't realize why it was happening and would be unable to stop it from happening.
What? What the fuck?
How could he guess that his own daughter was slipping pills into his food to get him to look more feminine? Getting the pills was far easier than you might imagine. I had a friend whose older brother was going through a gender change himself. He knew someone who could get me exactly what I needed.
Hold up!
It wasn't cheap, but I had been saving my allowance for a long time, and I decided it was a worthy investment. It would allow me to shoot 2 birds with 1 stone. First, I would finally get rid of Missy. Second, I would get my dad to realize that looks weren't everything. I was going to punish him for the way he dumped my mom for a girl half his age and finally have some peace and quiet at my own house. Now, you might think what I did was wrong. But believe me, this woman was too annoying to deal with any longer. And Dad kind of had it coming, so I really don't regret it at all. I knew that the process would be long, but I was ready to wait. After all, in time, Missy would dump Dad and everything would be fine. Every single day, I added pills to Dad's meal. I would ground the little white capsules and then mix the food so that he couldn't tell the difference. They tasted like nothing, so it was impossible to feel the difference unless he actually saw me doing it. Dad thought I was being super helpful and sweet by cooking for him so often, and he raised my allowance. He didn't know that this was helping me buy the pills I was using to punish him and get rid of his girlfriend once and for all. My plan worked like a charm. It took a few weeks, but eventually Dad's features began to change. I had to stop myself from giggling and telling Dad that he looked like a girl. I just acted surprised whenever he asked us if we noticed something different about him. His features were gentler and he didn't grow facial hair so easily. Also, he had to get haircuts far more often because it was growing at an alarming rate. He even began growing female parts on his chest, and most of the shirts he used to wear didn't fit him right any longer. Of course, Missy freaked out and told him he had to do something about it. Dad went to the doctors, but they couldn't understand why his appearance was changing like that. They ran some tests and discovered the extra estrogen in his blood, but no one could explain why this was happening. They gave him some pills to balance this problem out, but I would change them for the female pills instead. That made the change happen faster and faster. Plus, it was so much easier to get him to take the pills daily since he was doing it by himself to try and fix the problem. His jaw seemed more delicate and his body rounded. Dad wasn't a manly man any longer, and even his mood was more feminine and delicate. It was hilarious. I was so happy that Dad finally had his comeuppance and that Missy seemed so annoyed all the time. It was clear that there was trouble in paradise. Dad and Missy weren't getting along at all, and she constantly told him to solve the issue of his appearance. Dad tried everything, including silly so-called miracle cures, but of course, none worked. Whatever he tried taking, I would always replace it with the estrogen pills. Eventually, Missy told my dad that she didn't want to be seen with a guy who looked like a woman. She screamed like a madwoman and ended up breaking up with him. I couldn't believe how well my plan had worked. Imagine how happy I was when Missy packed up her stuff and left. My dad's annoying girlfriend was finally out of my life, and I didn't have to deal with her any longer. After that finally happened, I decided Dad had suffered enough. I stopped giving him the pills. Little by little, he's going back to normal. He is so confused and doesn't understand what managed to finally solve his problem, but he's clearly very relieved. I hope Dad doesn't get himself another crazy girlfriend. If he does, though, I have a whole box of pills with his name on them. Thanks for watching. What is the worst thing you've done to get rid of someone you don't like? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and check out other videos on our channel.
No! No! No!